So if you've been following my channel for long, you know that this corner's been problematic, and I decided the best way to fix it was to rip it up and start again, as the old Orange Juice song goes, if you're old enough to remember that from the 80s. So that's what I'm doing. Is what the problems were, this joint here where it meets the points, it's a bit of a dog leg basically, and there was quite a few derailments, usually in one direction, the wrong direction. So I'm going to do it again, and in that corner there, very long coaches just caught that bit of plywood that's nailed against the roof rafters, so I'm going to remove that and then put the track in and see what we've got left, and I'll sort something out after that. So that's where we're at. So I'm just about to clean this up, cut that bit out, and put some more track in, I think. So that's the whole cut. A little bit bigger than it needs to be really, but it's easily going to be to put it back. That's a bit of plywood there, and there's the insulation, which takes us right back to the first video, I think, really. Bit annoying, but I'd rather cut that out and have the trains run smoothly than have to deal with it later. It didn't take long. One of these multi-tools, amazing bits of kit, worth having. So I'll get this track cleaned up, and we'll start seeing what sort of radius we can get. I'm going to try and fit the largest one I can squeeze into that space, I think. Okay, the track's laid. It's not wired up yet, but it's laid, and I have tested it with a couple of coaches, and they do go inside that little cutout there, so I'll have to modify that somehow. So what I did to try and make the curve a bit better was I continued the radius of the Pico point. This radius here of this track is 30 inches on a Pico curve point, so I used a 30-inch track setter like this to get the first couple of inches on the flexi track at 30 inches, and then reduce it down to I think that's 21 actually. Yes, it is 21. Reduce it down to 21 before we get to the tight bit there. Then the inside track, I had to, obviously that's a unique size, no track setter for that, so I had to use some of these track spacers, which you can get from different suppliers. They're very useful because you can set the radius whichever you want. They're very good, come in pairs. One thing I did notice though is some of my soldering on the tracks is pretty poor. I'm a bit embarrassed actually. This here, if you can say one, there's a dropper wire soldered on here, and there's more than one as well. What it is, it actually stands slightly proud of the rail. Now it's not too bad. It doesn't make any difference if it's about the same height, but if it's proud, and depending on the wheel profile, it actually makes the trainer look like it's going over speed bumps. And I just noticed this when I was testing the curves with the coaches when I got to this point, so I'm going to have to go around checking all my dropper wires, make sure there's none sticking up too far, and because what I did as well, every single piece of track has a pair of drop wires to improve connectivity, electrical continuity I should say, so I'm going to have to test all those. So it's all wired up, seems to go through okay. As you can see, it is pretty close to the edge, but I'm pleased I took that bit of wood out. I've actually increased the radius of the outside curve and therefore the inside curve, so I think that's better. We'll have to tidy that up though. So as you can see then, the goods line goes over the main line there. Unfortunately, because of the size of the loft, I haven't really got a lot of room. I'd love to have more height, a good sort of 4 inches, 100 mils at least between the tracks, but I just haven't got space for that without affecting the layout substantially, I think. So I'm basically operating on a minimum height, which is about 65-70 mils above track level, which isn't ideal, but it still gives plenty of room, I think, for some interesting scenic treatment. That's what I really want to do, to have a sort of organic landscape. We'll see if it happens though or not. But got the top loop of the goods line in now, so it goes around here. This is all going to be sort of covered in the end, in the corner, the modified corner. Don't want any derailments in there because that's going to be boxed in essentially. Then it comes into the station underneath the goods line. So the goods line goes around the top there. Haven't decided how I'm going to do that, whether it's going to be sort of a viaduct or with sort of units inside, like you might say, little workshops and stuff, or just a brick retaining wall or scenery or whatever. I'm not really sure. Haven't decided. Then there's this bit, curves right round. Now this centre bit, which is full of stuff at the minute, that was going to be an industrial area. I couldn't decide whether it's going to be sort of a paper mill or a brewery or a biscuit factory or something interesting, or I might just keep it scenic, I don't know. Right, so what we've got here is the installation of Powerbase. I'm doing it my way, slightly different to what DCC Concepts say in their instructions. They say you should only put a little dot of glue on the bottom of each plate, but I didn't really want to risk it curling up, especially at the ends where you'll notice there's two sort of little pointy bits. I think they're prone to lift, so I actually painted the bottom of the Powerbase with some PVA glue to ensure it was stuck properly basically. Then I wiped away the excess with some kitchen roll, and before I weighed it down I thought I'd cover it with cling film to see if it'll stop it sticking to the wood, obviously, because it does ooze out of the holes for your cables and around the edges where you perhaps put too much on. So I put cling film on, then put the wood on, and then weighted it down, and I've left it 24 hours to see what happens. There's the cling film. Apologies for the shaky camera work, it's hard doing this one-handed. I'm sure you all know what it's like, holding the camera in one hand and trying to do something with the other hand. Well, it seems to have worked. A successful idea. You can see the Powerbase there, all stuck down. A few dark bits on the top where the glue's oozed through. So one thing I didn't do, and I only thought about it afterwards, was I should have continued the Powerbase well into the flat bit, where if you're coming up a ramp, up a gradient, it flattens out at the top obviously, and in this bit I've only done it a few plates past the prow of the hill, if you like. I should have gone much further past, because if you think about it, if a locomotive's coming up the hill, you've got the length of the locomotive, but you might have, well, in my layout, you might have 5 coaches, or you might have 10 or 15 wagons on the back. So although the locomotive gets to the top of the hill and goes on the flat, it's still got the weight of what's behind it pulling it backwards. So it still needs that traction, that grip, I think. So I think it's probably a good idea to continue the Powerbase past the hill. Probably half a length of a train, I would say, if not a bit more, so that the locomotive gets past the prow of the hill and still maintains good grip until the weight of what's behind it starts to lessen considerably. So I forgot to do that, so we'll have to see if that affects anything. I don't really want to be taking track up or anything and doing it again, definitely not. Anyway, I've got the Powerbase glued down here. You can see the marks on it where the glue's oozed out, but it's nice and firm. Using the cling film and weighing it down seems to have done the trick. Except I've made one fundamental error, which I didn't think about until after it was too late. If you notice, I'll just jump over there. If you notice there, all my track is on cork underlay, which means there's a discrepancy in height now, unless I put cork down, which means the Powerbase is going to be underneath the cork, which is not really what I wanted. So I'm going to try it on this section here. I'm going to put some cork down on top of the Powerbase and see how the locomotives go. I mean, it might be that the locomotives can manage anywhere, but it is going to get some magnetic attraction even through the cork, because the magnets are very strong. But it will reduce it because it's 3mm thick, so it's 3mm of shielding, if you like. So we'll have to try, see how that affects it. If it does, I can actually just stick the Powerbase on top of the cork. Stick the cork down and stick the Powerbase on top of that with some glue, because the Powerbase is about 1mm narrower than the cork strips I'm using. Obviously that's more work, but we'll have to see how it goes anyway. So just before we finish, I'd just like to show you this little error here. If you can see that bit of softwood there with the barcode label on, that's one of the strengtheners for the gradient. It keeps the plywood stiff above it. Except it's a little bit too close to the curve of the main line, and he comes into City HST. What happens is, whoops, it pushes the coaches out, which will be an interesting ride, but it's obviously not what we're desiring, so I'm going to have to fix that. Everything else is okay, it's just the long coaches, so I'll have to basically take a chunk out of that piece of wood. Right, I'll leave you with some shots of the HST going through on the other line where it doesn't catch anything. And many thanks for subscribing. I do appreciate it. I can't believe how many subscribers I've got. I'm going to be needing some suggestions soon for the name of the station. So even though I've been doing this for about 18 months or so, I still haven't got a name. Just can't come up with anything I like. So I'll probably be looking for that soon. So until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.